The Chinese is a little bit different because they know that the Africans won't get funded for major projects. So what they decided to do is say, listen, we do need these resources. We're not going to lie to you. We need them. But we won't give you money. We'll just give you infrastructure. So basically, they'll build roads, bridges, roundabouts, in exchange for what that would naturally cost. They get that back in resources. I prefer that anyway, because when you look at a place like Africa, you can't give these leaders money. They're going to deposit it in Switzerland and be buying bottles in Magic City. Think about it. Why you think all these Africans out here balling? You didn't see, man, so many rich Africans between here and Houston. Man, that's all government money, the people's money. You know what I'm saying? So I like that infrastructure here so the people can benefit, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, to me, I think, but I think it's all different. Everyone has their own specific, version of what the Chinese are doing. Yeah. But I know me being there firsthand and seeing what they're doing, I'm not saying that all of them are doing great. I just know from the experience that I've had, it's been pretty positive, you know what I mean?
Greetings and welcome back to the channel. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Now that said, I would like you to check out this Akon interview. Check out this Akon interview clip. I'm gonna put the short version, but if you want to watch the longer version, you'll find it in the description box. So you watch the short version, and if it's interested, you can go and check out the longer version. Yeah, and check out the video and tell me what you think.
Imagine, you already know how complicated real estate is here. So now imagine that in a place that don't have the concept of real estate on that level. So a lot of things, all the way down to the zoning mechanism, has been created specifically for the city because it didn't exist before. Like, when you look at Africa, we never really had major high-rise buildings. The only place in all of Africa that really had it was in South Africa, which is the first part of Africa that was able to be developed. You know what I mean? But when you look at West Africa, East Africa, North Africa, Ethiopia is very close. They got, Ethiopia was always forward thinking and they did a few, incredible things. But for West Africa, Nigeria had a few mid-sized buildings, but never high-rise. So a lot of it was being created as the concept was being introduced. So, I had to get really close to the government, get really close to the president, all the ministers, kind of just give them a heads up as to what I'm doing as I'm doing it in real time, because we got caught into a lot of complications during COVID when the whole world shut down for those 2 years. So that was also a big problem. So we had to pivot from going physical to, okay, now let's figure out how to deal with all the things that we don't have to physically be there for, which is all the paperwork that needs to be done, all the licenses that need to be, processed, all the studies that need to be done, all the way from environmental studies, all the way to the soil studies. There's so much that needed to be done leading pre-construction. And these are things that I was learning as I go. It was just a great idea for me. I was never a developer before music. I was doing energy. But it all stemmed from the energy project and saying, okay, let me build something that can be electrified, and then I can use this as a way of developing the country, but at the same time providing energy as well. So I just started going through an old childhood dream from when I first came to America from Africa. You gotta think I was like a kid living in a small country village called Kolak. In Kolak, there's no running water, there's no electricity, there's no development at the time, no roads whatsoever. And I thought airplanes, when I saw them, I thought they were birds.
How old were you when you came to America?
I was 8, So imagine coming from that environment and then flying into a place like New York City.
By the birds. That's crazy.
In a bird. Like, when I got to the airport, I was like, that's the biggest bird I ever seen in my life.
In Atlanta, they still call them birds.
Fly south for the winter.
Yeah, so it was foreign. It was foreign to me. Then when I saw that we were actually going in the bird, I started crying. I was like, no, I'm not going in there. So I'm thinking the bird gonna eat us if I go. I'm not knowing what an airplane is. You understand? Yeah. So, bro, I was so afraid that when I got in the plane, and I thought I was literally inside the bird, that I fainted. So they put the seatbelt on me, and I didn't wake up until I was landing. So when I was landing, I'm seeing in the sky, and I'm looking down, I'm seeing these buildings, and I'm seeing these cars, like a whole bunch of just yellow cars. Like, I've never seen anything like this in my life. So But at the same time, it was so fascinating for me because I'm literally in the air. Like, I'm thinking I'm in heaven. I thought I died. Like, so, but that vision never left me. Like, so as a child, I always said to myself, man, one day I want to be able to do something like this for Africa. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, if it's even possible, but if I ever get in a position where something like that could even be a thought, then I'm never gonna let that thought pass me. So when you fast forward, 30-something years later, it's like, man, this is actually was civilization that I was actually experiencing rather. And this is something that actually is possible. I just have to be able to present it in a way to where they're not afraid of it or it doesn't scare them the way it scared me. The way money is allocated globally, the minority don't have access to funds of money that others have. And I like to call them others because I don't want to make it racial. But for the most part, we have the same systems that we have that's in front of us, but we don't all have the same systems that we have access to. And when you look at a project like that, especially in a place like Africa, which has been controlled and colonized for so long, there's certain parts about that continent that they can't afford for it to advance. And a city like Akon City is not only going to make the continent advance, but it's also going to advance the mentality of the people living there, which is a huge problem, because it will completely change the dynamic of how the financial system itself works. Because the moment Africans wake up and understand the power and the resources that we hold and the value that we are to the rest of the world, then clearly decisions will be made in favor of Africans and not others. You understand what I'm saying? So it's been a struggle. It's been a struggle from the moment I started, but the project itself was originally estimated to be a $6 billion project, completely built out. Now we kind of scaled it down a little cheaper because of the fact that technology has advanced a lot more, things that we would spend a lot more for, we don't have to. And then we're also using a lot of the resources that's already in the continent, so we don't have to, pull out and export, or import rather. So what ends up happening is now we're saving a lot more money. So we didn't, pretty much chopped it pretty much down. I won't go specifically into detail of how much because the price is changing as the project is growing, because more people are coming in, more investors are coming in with resources that I didn't have before. So now it's becoming a lot easier now that we broke ground.
Yeah, one of the things you've been adamant about is having African Americans coming back to Africa. You just said the number of $6 billion to build an entire city.
Right.
We just watched the Washington Commanders be sold for $6 billion. A group of investors came together to buy a football team.
A team.
What do we need to do to get people to actually look at Africa as an investment? We know the resources are there. We know the population is there. Right. What are we missing to get people to realize this is a place we should be investing?
Well, what we're missing really is just African Americans wanting to know more about themselves, because Africa is more about you than it is even Africans, for that matter. I mean, when you look at it, we built America. Like, we literally built America with our bare hands, our labor, our sweat, our blood, but we've never, not only did we ever get reparations for it, we never even got credit for it. We never even got recognized for it. And I think that's what builds so much animosity and anger within our community itself, because we know how much our contribution is worth, but we never got what our just due for what the contribution given. And that becomes an issue, because when you start having leaders that don't understand the dynamics of the power of what we have when we're united, then that changes the game too, because the people have to be the ones to figure that piece out. And I think the moment we get to the point where we figured out that coming together is the key to success in the future, then everything will change. But the importance of us taking us out of this situation is Africa. Africa is the only way out. It's the golden and it's the holy grail for your freedom. Like, if African Americans specifically, don't see that investing in Africa changes everything for you, I mean, all the way down to generational wealth. Like, Africa's in a position where if African Americans take position now, you guys, every single African American in America would be a millionaire without even thinking twice, because there's nothing that's not needed over there. So you guys come with the discipline, you come with the knowledge, you come with the resources, and then what you've created just for developing America, nothing can happen really in America without us. Just think about everything that creates so much revenue for America, from sports to entertainment to fashion to medicine. I mean, you name it. We're leading in every single sector, like us. Just imagine if we all just decided to just take all our bags, withdrew all our money, and go to Africa. Where would America be today? It would collapse overnight. Because nothing. Like all of our athletes can go create their own teams. Who do you think they're gonna watch?
So let me ask you this, because we interviewed Davido,
Right.
and he said that one of the biggest hurdles in Nigeria was working with the government, and he also said it's difficult to do business in Nigeria because a lot of elders don't respect young people, and like he's like, in American culture, you got a great idea, you're 19 years old, you can get $1 billion. Like, you know what I mean? Like, young people drive culture.
Right.
He was like, his critique was that in his part of Africa, it's too hard to get things done because of government, and it's too hard to get things done because older people are too stuck in their ways and they don't respect younger people enough. What's your thoughts on that?
Right. So I'm gonna answer both of those separately, because Davido has an amazing point. He's right to an extent, especially for the second point. The first point is it's hard to do business in Africa because of government. He's 100% correct. And it's not just Nigeria he's talking about. To me, it's the whole continent. It's everywhere in Africa. Because what happens is in Africa, when you look at the governmental system, the systems are built for the people to need the government. Whereas anywhere else in any developing market, you don't really need the government to do what you want to do. Like, only thing you need the government for pretty much is for regulation. That's all you should need the government for. They police the situation, make sure everybody's following the laws, paying their taxes, and going about things the right way to be able to make a profit margin, right? That's basic regulation, that every government should have that responsibility. But when you look at a place like Africa, like even me, to invest in Africa, I have to go see someone in government to physically do something. And when you're talking about a place that's got 2.5 billion people, 50-something countries, dividing that by 2.5-something billion people, and every entrepreneur that goes into your country have to go through government to create a business, the place will never grow. It just can't. You have to have systems in place where people and systems in place that has organizations where you can just go through to do basic things like get licensed or get, like how it is in America. We ain't got to go see Donald Trump to open up a barbershop. you understand what I'm saying? Like, you just go to City Hall, you create your LLC or whatever kind of company you want, and then from there, you get all the tax papers, you fill that out, you pay your taxes, and if there's a license to be done for whatever, employees, they have to go get their barber license or beautician license, whatever, then they're able to work because there's systems put in place. Africa, there's no systems put in place like that. And if they are, they're not communicated to the people enough for them to have to even know it exists. So what happens is people just create their own jobs. One thing about Africans is that they're very creative. They create their own jobs. But everything at the end of the day is all business. It's either buying or selling. Business is very simple. That's one language that everybody in the world can speak. Like, there's only one way to do it. You know what I'm saying? But for the most part, he's right about that because the government don't open up the doors enough to be able to allow the people to thrive because of fear. Because what happens is a lot of the governmental, politicians in most countries in Africa don't really have the power that they should have because they're still getting, you can say, controlled by the West. So if you see a coup that happens in the country, it ain't the people that's ousting them out. It's whoever controls that country that put together the system for that president to be ousted, and then they'd already picked the person that's going to replace him. Because Africa, as you know, the average person makes about $10 a month. Where are they going to find resources to coup somebody? These weapons that they're going back and forth, you know how much a basic 9 costs? Like, let alone we talk about M16s and AK-47s. Like, these are weapons that rebels that can barely find food on a day-to-day basis actually have plenty of, with ammunitions to match it. So they're being supplied. It's no secret that this is not African state of mind. In their mind, they're just trying to survive. But if you put a person in a position where he can't survive, his survival instincts kick in. He's willing to do whatever he has to do to protect and feed his family at the end of the day. You know?
What's your thoughts about the older
Now,
people not respecting
let's
younger
go
people?
back to his second point. His second point was the elders. Now, the elders are a lot stuck in their ways. They're very old-fashioned. But I think what happens is when you look at the dynamic between the elders in Africa and the youth of today, there's a disconnect there because a lot of the elders, like Africa, just the culture in Africa, the elder is the king, and you got to respect him as that. Like, even before I make a decision, I always go speak to my elders and I get advice. They may not be able to give me no money, or they may not give me nothing of value physically to be able to, you know, achieve whatever goal I'm trying to achieve, but they can give me something that's worth money, which is the knowledge and the experience of what they might have walked through, so I can know what not to be able to, you know, challenges that I may be able to face and how to deal with it before it even arrives, which will end up saving me more money than they probably would have ever gave me in the first place. The younger generation, they don't see value in knowledge as much as they should, right? So when the elders come and they say, okay, cool, they're not supporting, it's not that they're not supporting, it's just they don't understand what it is they're supposed to support. So if you come to somebody that's 80 years old and you're talking to him about an app, or something techie like Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok for that matter, he's like, what the hell is this? But you, at the same time that you're expecting him to understand what you're trying to get him to either invest in or support, you got to take time to give him the knowledge, to give him like information on what that is, so he can better advise on something that he might even want to do. He might not even understand it all and say, you know what, I believe when you go. But it's what happens is when the elders see something, they believe in the true way of, like, they don't see futuristic advancement through digital because they don't understand it well enough. They understand what investment means to them. And every African elder is going to tell you, if you invest your money, invest it in land, because they know that land never depreciates no matter what. Land was given to you through God. And one thing about African elders, the spirituality trumps the idea. They think in spiritual first before they think profit. Now, I wouldn't want to speak for Davido in this case, but I think if he took the idea, if he took the idea of knowing that they're going to probably give more of a spiritual advice, more, or rather than a profitable advice, he probably won't ever get nowhere with them, right? But at the same time, his knowledge makes a lot of sense and also gives them value, just understanding where he comes from, because their support can propel him to a whole nother level. But it also depends on the person that you may ask too, because I'm more of a patient person. Like, and the people that's patient are always going to be the ones that advance further in life, because when you're patient, you allow more information to come. And if anybody knows that information is power, those are the ones that's going to advance above all others. Because when you got that one little idea, or that one little advice that elder may have given you, can be what trumps you from everybody else that's in your generation that's moving forward, that's probably ignoring that one advice that may take you to the next level. You know what I mean? So I think when it comes to the elders and the youth, the only disconnect is the fact that the elders believe they know more, and the youth believe they don't know enough. But the moment they both respect each other's knowledge, then things will change. But it has to be the youth's role to respect the elder. It's not the other way around, because they paved the way for us. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So even though I may know what I know, I'm gonna take everything that he tells me into consideration to see how I can apply that to what I know. I can't force my information on him because he's on his way out. He'll never get it. But he can force his information on me because I'm still there and still learning as I go. And you'd be surprised how the old-fashioned way, when it's combined with the future, can be a huge impact.
Yeah.
So with the city, the first thing we did was get advice and blessing from the elders in that region that we bought the land from. They gave us the blessing, and they said, listen, the biggest thing that we thrive off here is farming. Now, mind you, a lot of the land that we took, about a third of that land was allocated for farms. So what we did, instead of, taking it away from them, that area we literally allocated for agriculture, to where we can build the futuristic type farming, the agro, that not go out, but go up. You follow what I'm saying? But in the process of that, I built the youth center as well too. So that way we can train the youth on how to manage that piece and understand what that is. But then we also brought in the elders who are now actually physically, as we speak, learning about what that is. So as we're getting to that part, they'll be able to just merge right in and live. So all they wanted was make sure that no jobs was taken away from them. So we had to explain to them how many more jobs we were going to be able to create. And it's not enough people in this village that's going to be able to fill up all these jobs that we're about to bring into the country. You know what I mean? But for the most part, what we're talking is industrial, but at the same time, it's more touristic attracted. Because one thing about a business, and I look at Akon City as a business first, and the reason why I say that is because Africa's been built on charity, and it's been built on aid for so long, to the point where they've brainwashed Africans to believe that that's all they're good for. Is receiving. They're not even knowing that they're the ones giving them everything they have to even give it back to them.
That's a fact. That's a fact. I never thought about it like that, but that's a fact. That is a fact.
So the whole idea is build profitable opportunities that's going to keep you empowered so you never have to worry about aid. You never have to worry about giving back. If anything, you're the one in position to give, not being in the position to receive. So everything that we've created has been a system of empowering the people. So let me give you the sectors, right? So you have the educational district, where we're teaming up with 5 major educational institutions here in America. I signed an NDA with them, so I can't disclose who they are yet. The city's in Dakar. I'm building it for African tourism to begin. And then, of course, outside tourism is going to naturally be attracted anyway because of just what it represents. But it's more so people that's in Africa, specifically students, don't have to fly all the way to Europe or all the way to America to go to a place like Harvard or to go to a place like, MIT or something like that. They can just go to their, hub in Dakar and take the same exact course or even sometime video chat with the main system that's in America and get the actual information and education for a lower price, without having to fly all the way over there or worry about a visa or some kind of immigration issues that they may have to face, right? So that's for the education district. Then we have the entertainment district, which is the field that I specialize in, where we have full out blown, film studios. Then we have full recording studios. Then within that, we also have the amphitheater for live concerts and sporting events and things of this nature. And it's all built around, major African soccer players that's playing huge, sports in Europe, playing for Premier Leagues or whatever, because soccer is a huge thing for us over there. So that comes, and then we bring a lot of the American players that want to create, basketball initiatives for Africa that can partner with NBA Africa, because we have a partnership with them where we lit up all the basketball courts that they're doing in Africa. We're providing all the solar lights over there for them. So we have a great relationship with those guys over there. Then we have the medical district, which is, same concept that we have for the education district, but the medical district, we have people, facilities here that specialize in medicine and research that's going to bring that system to Africa, where we combine modern medicine along with tribal medicine. Because a lot of people don't realize how strong tribal medicine is. Because especially in America, they banned a lot of the medical, solutions that you don't even have to pay $1 billion for or even go get a surgery for, that they can cure in Africa naturally. But because of the huge capitalist that happens here, where the money is worth more than human life, healthcare is the most highest. I mean, it's the highest sector in America. Like, healthcare is ridiculous to what they charge you for basic aspirin, right? So the idea over there is to be able to combine modern medicine with tribal medicine and find a solution just for humanity in general. So we have all of these roles that actually play within the Akon City, which will all be built in different stages. Dubai is actually what inspired me to know that it was actually possible. When I went to Dubai in 2004, it was only 2 buildings up. You go there now, it's like, you know what I'm saying? And at the time, that's when I realized that it's about leadership. Because when you have a person that's leading and he's well respected and he understands that the people come first and the needs of the people come first, the support that you can get is endless, especially when you have the resource to bargain with. See, the Middle East, the only resource they have is oil. That's all they got. And they were able to do all that with just one resource. Look at Africa that has over 350 major resources. No, like major resources. Mm-hmm. To the point where this camera that's looking at me, to the mic that's looking at me, all those elements are from resources in Africa. Like, but we don't have access to any of it. And then the ones that do have access don't know the value of it. So they just pass it out. You know what I mean? So when I saw what Dubai was able to do with that and be able to create agreements with those resources that actually brought the money back to the Middle East for them to develop that for their country, I said, you know what? This is where it's at right here. This is gonna be my life goal, to figure out a way to do that for Africa. And I'm gonna start in Senegal, where I got a little bit of, in the beginning it was a PPP, which is a public-private partnership, right? When you got private money, you got public money, and they work together. But then as I got into it, I realized this has to be more of a private investment. The government, their only allocation at the time was supposed to be the land. But then I realized I had to purchase the land. So I was like, okay, well, there ain't really no partnership, so I gotta buy it.
Gotcha.
All right, can you help me out with the taxes at least? You know, so I was like, okay, cool. That ain't gonna work, so let me just buy the land. So I ended up buying the land. So now it became a complete private investment, you know, family offices, you know, wealthy individuals that just see the value in investing in Africa, especially with major development projects like this. And it's gonna be the people like the Dangotes of the world that's gonna invest. Because all I wanted really was African money to be in this project first. That's why my first round was allocated only for African investors, so that way they can actually benefit from the future of what this is. Because Akon City is gonna be in 5 major countries within the next, well, my goal is for it to be in 5 major countries within the next 20 years, right? We've already got land in Uganda, which they gave me a whole, and that one is a public-private partnership because the government actually gave me the land, you know, and they actually are looking and believe in the full scope of what this could do for Uganda as well. You know, and that's right, it's a huge mountain that overlooks the Victoria Lake, that overlook the, you know, the Victoria, the falls, and it's like, Lake Victoria is like notorious for the beauty of just what it looks like, but it's a square mile, just right, like you literally looking at, breathtaking. You can't, like, I can't wait, but Senegal starts first, and then once that's on turnkey, then we go to Uganda and start the process over there, which will be the same process all the way down to, you know, there's land and people living on certain parts of land that we have to be able to move and give them something of equal value or better, so they can be able to give us the opportunity to move around. But it's almost like when, what they call that, when you go into the hood and you have to redevelop and
Gentrification?
Gentrification to an extent, but this ain't gentrification though, this is just modification. Because they all understand what's going on, they all are for it, they love the idea. It's my responsibility to make sure that they're gonna be in a place just as good or comfortable or better. But once the city's built, they'll come back to that exact area where they lived and be able to get another place in the city. So it's almost like a holding time period from the time we actually have to build it all up.
So all of these cities are going to be called Akon City?
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's a lot of criticism of China's involvement in Africa.
Right.
And I know that you've done work with them, I believe, when you were doing the lightning project, electricity.
Right.
So, you know, a lot of people are saying this is the new era of imperialism and colonialism without, you know, guns, but they're doing it through debt, different things of that nature. So, and they don't have good intentions for the continent. You've actually worked with, obviously, people in China, corporations. How has your relationship been with the Chinese, and what is your thoughts on the Chinese in Africa?
Well, I can't really state or respond to what's been said about the Chinese if you look at it on the internet. I can only speak about my personal experiences. Me personally, the Chinese was a blessing for me. I remember going to multiple opportunities to get funding to be able to provide lights in Africa. But the Chinese just gave me the credit line just after the first proposal. You know, they gave me $1 billion credit line to be able to start whatever I wanted to do in the whole continent. So my idea was, at that time, I just wanted to provide lights to my people. We could figure out the details later. Let's get the lights going first so we can see what we're figuring out. You know what I'm saying?
Literally.
Yeah, like,
Literally.
come on, man. Like, it's about
see.
action. You know, everything else can be worked out. It's all negotiation. And I think when you look at the Chinese, their perspective is different because their cultures and Africa's cultures are very similar. And I think that's why they're able to integrate so much easier than most. And I think when the West comes to Africa, they come with these rules and these already, you could say, put together infrastructures, and they try to plant that same infrastructure in Africa, and it doesn't work. So you have to be creative in Africa. The mentality is different, the people is different, you know, the terrain is different, environment is different, and you can't come with a U.S. proposition or a European proposition and apply that to Africa when the propositions there face a lot more challenges, and it's not as simple. You know what I mean? So the Chinese were more patient. They actually are on the grounds to see what was happening and to know how to fix whatever certain challenges. But for the most part, when they say that the Chinese are robbing Africa, I actually disagree, because when they came in, they actually came with a barter system. Most times when the Europeans came to Africa, they pulled resources out, but they never pulled back in. Whereas the Chinese is a little bit different, because they know that the Africans won't get funded for major projects. So what they decided to do is say, listen, we do need these resources. We're not going to lie to you. We need them. But we won't give you money. We'll just give you infrastructure. So basically, they'll build roads, bridges, roundabouts, in exchange for what that would naturally cost. They get that back in resources. I prefer that anyway, because when you look at a place like Africa, you can't give these leaders money. They're going to deposit it in Switzerland and be buying bottles in Magic City. Think about it. Why do you think all these Africans out here balling? You didn't see, man, so many rich Africans between here and Houston. Man, that's all government money, the people's money. You know what I'm saying? So I like that idea. No, nigga, let's put infrastructure here so the people can benefit. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, to me, I think, but I think it's all different. Everyone has their own specific, version of what the Chinese are doing. Yeah. But I know, me being there firsthand and seeing what they're doing, I'm not saying that all of them are doing great. I just know from the experience that I've had, it's been pretty positive. You know what I mean?